All right, here is another way to create skies, painted skies, or cloudy, colorful illustrations of skies with clouds. And what you see here is actually something that combines the use of the 3D designer in a couple of ways. This was in version 8.2 already, where we moved it onto the GPU, and so we were able to create these illustrations pretty quickly. Primarily designed for landscapes and fantasy mountain scenes, but you can also use those if you flip them upside down and combine them in interesting ways to create some skies, colorful sunset skies like these. And so what I'd like to do is show you just the very basic steps on how to achieve that. Now, the real final is probably a combination of 2 or 3 layers of that. Okay, so I'll show you how to create one, and then we'll combine typically 2 or 3 of those, and maybe even one that's a photograph. Right? You go outside, take a photograph of a sunset sky, and you have a basis for some of that. But let's go with rendering a plasma noise and take a relatively small, bumpy look to that. You can always add a little bit of color change to that, or other levels or curves to perhaps add a little bit of saturation in the brighters and make it a little bit darker in there. And so let's say we go and store that, just in case we need to get back to this one. And we'll go right into the 3D designer. So under transform, filter transform 3D designer. So again, this is normally used for landscape or mountain scenes, but you can flatten it down, right? You can take the amplitude very low, and right there you start seeing something that might be useful either to model the surface of water, like ocean water, or the surface of the sky as seen from underneath it, right? Imagine essentially rotating it upside down, and you're now looking at under the sky level. And it's just a matter of getting it right with a little bit of color and dimension. Let's see if we make this a little bit bigger, covering the whole sky, and then giving it the right colors. So you can change the location of the light. So let's say one of them a reddish. Let's give it a little bit more of a reddish tint. That will be the one for where the sun is setting, something like that. And then we probably will want to have a little bit of a bluish or maybe a purplish color for the second light source that we will move to the other side. So you see a little bit of a purplish tint in the upper parts above our heads. You can also change the angle here. So now we still don't quite see the full potential here for clouds. And so what I'd like to do is basically make it so that we have some openings, and that is best modeled with yet another color as fog. So what I'm going to do is take this background color, leave it black initially here, and simply use the ground fog, something like this here, in linear or non-linear mode, and increase the value. And then, so you see the fog creeping up in the valleys, right? Remember, normally the terrain is upside down like this. This is not upside down. This is the right side up, right? And so you have the fog coming up from underneath it. And in fact, if the background color is changed to something like a light blue tint, then that's what you see. You get this fog color. And let's say now we make it a little bit darker blue, maybe with a little bit of a purple haze, something like this. All right, and we turn it back upside down, something like that. All right, so now at this time we are getting close to one level of cloudiness. You can adjust the low level of the cloud of the fog as well, and let's call this one level, and store that. Right, so you have one level here already achieved. And I'm going to do just the same with a second level. Let's go back quickly into render, plasma noise. This time we'll take bigger features, I don't know, or smaller. You know, play with something a little bit different. And we might want to even stretch it or squeeze it in one direction. So there's all sorts of different other types of transforms you might want to do. Maybe add a little bit of a turbulent appearance to that. So you could, or maybe a little bit of a twist. You know, maybe there is a hurricane up there in the atmosphere, and you play with that until you get sort of the effect you want. And I'm just going to take that back, right back here into 3D Designer one more time. 3D Designer here, and we still have the same layout here, but maybe we'll need a slightly different coloring for that. So let's go and adjust the parameters of the lighting effect here, and maybe we'll need a little bit brighter all over, like this. And of course also the shadows, you can have the ray traced cast shadows here, which you will see when you have the elevation go up a little bit. So don't underestimate the power of that as well. If you go and look at it from the normally you would see something like this, right? I mean, that's really what you need to decide. Are you looking at the planet from above, and are you looking therefore at sort of the eye of the hurricane as you are flying over that in your spaceship, or are you underneath it and contemplating it for a sunset, right? And so maybe you need to adjust a little bit some of these parameters. All right, so let's say this is one that we want to use as well. Let's give it just a little bit more distance and dimension so we can cover more of the sky with it, and make it a little bit wider. There you go. All right, so let's say this is our next level of imagery that we also want to combine. Let's go store that one. So one of them is here, and then the other one is here. We want to combine the two together now. You know, you can do that in many different ways. You could load, for instance, this one here into the base layer, and then just add another layer, and click this one to add that, and then decide how you want to combine the two, right? We don't do opaque layer. We don't do opaque layer mixing, but we have lots of other ways to combine that, and that's where you'll be able to adjust it so you see a little bit through it, or you see a little bit of both of these, and start getting really interesting results with that as well. Let's go back to this one and temporarily hide this one. I want to give a little bit of a faded, foggy look to this along the horizon. Right now we have this sudden cutoff, which was reaching when we reached the end of the 3D Designer. The terrain was cut off here, so we need to do a little bit of blurry there, but just along the horizon, and perhaps also a little bit of color fade. So there's a couple of ways to look at that. One is the linear gradient, and if you look at the different gradients you have, such as the sweep editor here, you could easily see something like the opacity fading away. But then when you look at it here, you can have it fully opaque on one side and then kind of fading away into the other direction. So you could, for instance, use something like that with a different color set. Let's say something like this here, but make sure that it is fading away in opacity. So if this is going to be the blue of the sky, and you want to multiply that to the current one and then gradually fade it away, or make it actually fade here and then gradually get it solid, that would be something like this, right? So you have now a solid base here, and you want it fully transparent on the blue sky side. So that would be, there you go, something like that. Looks like I missed one bit here, so I need to go all the way to the left edge, keep that transparent, that opacity go up higher, and there you go. So something like that, right? So I can now go and say start around here and eventually get it fully opaque. All right. So that's perhaps where we can also adjust the result of the transparency of the sky. Maybe make it a little bit stronger, even something like that. Maybe the mode, instead of a replace mode, opaque mode, have it in a multiply mode, so that will also further adjust the color without totally destroying it, right? And if you do this a few times, you can also give the impression of sort of additional fog layers, right? There's a little bit of sediments happening here, where it might make it look like there's a little bit of a haze, or a little bit of smog, or something like that. There's also one more thing you want to keep in mind. Let me undo all these, and that's if you go and increase the value here a little bit. There you go, perhaps a little bit darker, then brighter here again. Opacity, we'll do something like this. There you go. So now we can go and put this there a couple of times until we have just a lot of different layers, a lot of different additional cloud and fog layers here. And now re-enable this one here on top, and you can clearly see kind of through it, but still get a hint of the big massive hurricane you have above it. And so that's one of the many ways to work with this. Let's see one more trick you can play, and that's on the actual blending level here. If you use something like screen mode, that's a popular one to combine the two, and then adjust a little bit some of that. You could try the multiply mode, right? All depending on what kind of mood you want out of that. Let's see, subtractive, not so much. Additive, that will make it brighter usually. Exclusion, difference. So you know, play with these. There's a lot of things to explore. Reflect, glow, and always adjust that a little bit. And maybe you'll find yet another type of sky that you were not even looking for, and eventually say, well, that's actually pretty cool. Let's go and flatten all this into one. And you now have a new sky with a hint of really two levels of skies. And well, that's that. Thanks for watching.